organization in your downtown is. So we're going to talk about these 4 bullets here. But first I wanted to tell you a little bit more about me. I was a Main Street manager in Virginia from 2010 to 2015. It is why I say I'm a recovering Main Street manager. I will never get over it. It is something that sunk in and that I love doing. It's a different challenge every day, as I'm sure all of you know. And the first thing I did was when they hired me, I checked my business management degree at the door. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about running a nonprofit, so that degree isn't going to help me. And as you can imagine, within the first year, I realized I had shot myself in the foot. So as a consultant, I try really hard to work with nonprofit and Main Street managers to find a way to bring some more business processes and practices into your nonprofit to help you be more sustainable. In addition to that, I'm also just a person. I do silly things. I have amazing children, as I'm sure we all do. We were talking about that earlier, right? All of our children are the most amazing children, and then when you have grandchildren, that multiplies. I understand. I'm not there yet. Have fabulous friends as well. I'm going to dive right in. Invisibility is only good if you're a superhero, right? It does not serve you as a nonprofit leader, as a Main Street manager. We don't want to be invisible. One of the reasons why I made this workshop was because, and I don't know, you can raise your hand or say yes, give me an amen if you've heard this. I used to have Main Street merchants tell me all the time, people walk in the store and they say, I've lived here 10 years, I had no idea any of this was here. Thank you. But also, I could walk around town and I could say the name of the organization and people would say, the what? I've never heard of you. What is that? And I would then list the events we did. Well, we run First Fridays. We've got Gumdrop Square. We have Evening Under the Stars. Oh, yeah, I know all the events, but they've never heard of the organization. And so that was when I realized, okay, we're just not screaming loud enough because downtown has always been here for, what, 200, 250 years, however old your town is. And this organization, I mean, some of them may be new, but a lot of them aren't. And we need people to know that our downtown is awesome, and we need them to know why. And it's because of our Main Street program. There we go. So first thing we want to do is we want to learn how to communicate value. So we want to make sure that our board members, our committee members, and even our volunteers know what our Main Street program is worth so that they can go out and they can talk about it. Because if the people inside your organization don't get it and they can't communicate it, then it isn't going to spread out. Excuse me, my allergies are going crazy. Every trip I take is a different season where I go. So how do you communicate the value also to your funders, to people that you want money from, and to your downtown businesses? Do all your business people know how great the organization is and how great you're doing, all the great things you're doing that have an impact on your downtown? And what about the city or the town government itself? Do they know how valuable your Main Street program is? A lot of them do, some of them don't, and we need to help them get there. So what are we going to tell them? How are we going to communicate that value to our stakeholders so that they get it? First of all, we're going to talk about money. I know usually when I'm training boards, this is the part where nobody looks at me in the face anymore. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people are really shy about talking about money. We need to talk about money. We need money to do the things we want to do to have an impact in our town. We need to talk about the money that we need. We need to talk about the money that you should be giving us. We need to talk about the money we don't have. All the things we could do if we had more. We need to talk about the mission, the vision, and the values of the organization. This is something that I realized in talking with a lot of board members in different states is it's hard for board members to go out and talk about the mission because they don't really understand the mission. And I've seen some mission statements, I will say, and I don't know, you can give me another amen if you have one. I have seen some mission statements for Main Street organizations that are a whole page long because they tried so hard to fit every one of the 4 points into the mission statement. I see somebody who looks like they're agreeing. And so it's really hard because you're never going to memorize that. And do you really understand it? And if you are, you're probably a Main Street person. But how many times are you looking at a Main Street person trying to explain your mission? You're not. So are they really going to understand it? So make sure you understand what the value of your organization is. What is it you're really trying to do? Maybe there's just one thing you really know well about the organization. Brag about that. But talk about, when we started talking about buzzwords, right? Historic preservation, economic revitalization. What do those words mean to the average person in your community? So try to relate your mission and the high impact that you have in your downtown. You know, don't you think our downtown is vibrant? Don't you want to see more businesses like the ones we have here? We want to fill those vacancies. Talk about things that relate to the people that you're speaking to and the values of the organization. I think that was a little amen. Talk about the history. Even if your organization isn't that old, the downtown is. Talk about the history of the downtown. Get people excited about what's there. One of the things that I tell people, because they're like, the downtown, the Main Street, what? And it's like, okay, think about it. Picture your town 250 years ago. It wasn't downtown. This was just town. You know, the things that were there, the post office, the general store, the attorney, the doctor, they were all just part of town until everything grew up around it, and now we call it downtown. Like, this is what we're trying to protect. So when you relate it to people, they understand it a little bit better. We're talking about future plans. So we want to talk about the history, and if you can talk about the history of the organization, that is great. Here are the things that we've done. What impact have you already made in the downtown as part of the organizational history? But also talk about where you're going. What are we going to do? How are we going to impact things? That's where you start getting that investment, by showing people that you've been making an impact and that you're going to continue to do so. And that's what gets people excited, because they always want to see things. Talk about the things that people love and how much more of that you're going to create for them. And talk about the people, right? Nobody really loves an organization. Nobody really loves a town. People love the people. So talk about the people and celebrate the people that you have in your organization, the people who volunteer for you, your Main Street merchants. When we add faces and names to the story, it really helps for compelling more investment. And then talk about the past, the present, the future, all of your accomplishments, your projects, and your goals. We want to talk about the types of projects that lead to that impact, not just, you know, what are we going to do in the future, but how are we going to get there? Because we also want people to jump on board and see the value of it and want to take leadership in it. We want them to be part of those projects. So talk about those things. That's how you get some of your volunteers as well as possible donations. So you really need to think about the value of what your organization is providing and the value and impact that it's making in your downtown. So it's sort of a twofold story there. We want to brag about our organization and we want to brag about what it's doing for our downtown. And don't forget that what you have learned is just as important as what you have accomplished. So it's sort of like saying, you know, failure is fine as long as you've learned from it. And make sure that's part of your story too. They're not all successes. They're not all great wins. Sometimes you just smack your head on the wall. But did you smack your head on the wall and learn something from it? What did you learn from it? And sometimes that's really compelling for people too. They value authenticity. And it's just as important to be able to answer questions as it is to tell the story. I know a lot of Main Street managers and the employees of Main Street organizations have a much easier time because they're there every single day. They understand what's happening. But sometimes your board members or your committee members need a little more information so they can answer questions as well as tell the story. So we're communicating value, but also people will have questions. Hopefully they have questions. That's how you know they're interested. So make sure that you can answer some questions or at least be able to say, you know, oh, I can find out and tell you. But I've seen some groups, and I love this, who when they have board meetings or committee meetings, they get together and they go around the room and everybody gets to talk about the mission or some elevator pitch that they would give if they were out in the public. Whether it's asking for money or asking for volunteers or just talking about the organization, so they're practicing with each other. And it's a great way to steal ideas from each other, who's got the best things they're saying in the room, practice and polish that. It's also a great way to bring up some questions maybe that people have had that you couldn't answer and get those answers, and then others will learn in the room as well. Every narrative needs two vital things. You need a well-told story, and you need the data to back it up. And I know I heard a couple of people talking about Pacer AI and some stats and things. You need all those numbers in order to help you tell your story. I met a woman one time who was saying, you know, well, we do everything for everyone in the community. And I said, okay, you really need something more specific than everyone and everything. That's just too broad. Give me numbers. And I'm a numbers nerd, so you can just give me a spreadsheet and that's all you have to do, but a lot of people want to hear the story too, so you need a good mix. Which brings us to impact reporting. This is a great way to help you tell your story. You need to start collecting data if you aren't already. You might have that in a dashboard, you might have that in a database, you can make spreadsheets. As I mentioned, I'm an Excel nerd, like give me a spreadsheet, I love it, all the columns, all the data. If you don't have a database or some software, just open up an Excel spreadsheet and start making it yourself and just update it every so often. One thing that I have had to do for myself, because I will wind up not dating it, and then when I go back and I try to do my data, I don't know where I started, so I have to start from the beginning of time again. So every time you collect your data and you update your spreadsheet, date it so that you know how far back you have to start when you count going forward. Start talking about dollars. This is some of the data you might collect. People served, programs launched, volunteer hours, other mission-related data. I'm sure the state asks you for certain things every year in reports. Your funders may ask you for things, or there may just be items that you realize you have. Tickets sold at an event. If your merchants will give you information, maybe it's extra customers they saw that weekend because you did something special. Any data, any numbers that help you tell your story of either your organization or your downtown is great information to have. And then storytelling. You've always heard the old jokes, right? Last night it was so cold. How cold was it? Well, you need